Some key men, but overall it is the Germans that take 3 points in their opening Euro qualifier. Hey, before we break down what this means for each country, this was a great match, wasn't it? Because, you know, international week, maybe there's some...
You're not as excited about it.
There's some dross around, but this was superb.
It's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Two of the best teams around the world and in Europe. You saw good individual performances. You saw good team performances, certainly in the second half by the Netherlands. The first half, not so much. What was interesting to me is that when the lineups come out, neither one of these teams, again, historically some of the best teams in the world, playing with an out-and-out striker. So long gone are the days of Patrick Kluivert and Bergkamp and Van Nistelrooy. That's not quite happened, or Bierhoff, or whoever you want to mention on the German side. It just feels we're in a different time. And yet, they both became very dangerous at times, running with and without the ball, creating spaces for each other. The first half was for the German, the second half was for the Netherlands. It was a great match.
It's easy to forget that as good as these two teams traditionally are, the Dutch didn't qualify for the World Cup, the Germans underperformed, and then you saw the Germans kind of continue that trend in the Nations League where the Dutch were very good. And you wanted to see how the Germans in particular would respond to those two embarrassments. And I thought did really well, in particular Leroy Sané in the first half, who I thought was by far and away the standout player on the park. Again, raising more questions as to why he didn't go to the last World Cup. But he was simply outstanding. And then when the Germans all of a sudden found themselves up against the ropes, somehow they were able just to settle things down just in time, because the Dutch had chances themselves to go ahead. And Ali alluded to it. But that third goal, when you look at the highlight, the Dutch had players in position. They were set up perfectly defensively. And you don't really appreciate how patient the Germans were with their possession, with their passing, to eventually unlock what is an outstanding Dutch defense. It was a goal that was deserving of the occasion, deserved to win a game as good as this one. And again, reminiscent of those great German teams that we've known and loved, and all of a sudden we seem to have forgotten about over the last couple of years.
All right, Shane.
You okay, Shane?
I'm just saying, what we've seen from them over the last 18 months, you take that hands down.
It's not glory days just yet, Shane.
Well.
All right.
Compared to what we've seen over the last 18 months, yes.
I suppose so. And you mentioned the point on Leroy Sané. So when you decide to play without an out-and-out strikers, because you're looking for flexibility, you're looking for movement, guys that can work inside and work outside. And it proved to be the correct decision by Jogi Löw, maybe because they don't have anybody that is actually good enough to be their out-and-out striker. But Leroy Sané then gives you that option of working underneath. He goes out wide. He has enough pace to move without the ball and then move with the ball in 1v1 situations. When he does that, he's very difficult to mark, because when he throws himself out into wider areas, then who do you deal with? Do you send the center back out there? If you send the center back out there, Leroy Sané is going to eat you alive. But then if you don't work your way across defensively, then you're leaving holes in the middle as well. To me, it showed, Leroy Sané in particular, that is a player that you just have to give him the ball in dangerous areas, and he's going to provide chances for himself and for others.
Let's bring Gab Marcotti into the show. I can tell he's chomping at the bit to jump at you, Ali. What you want to say, Gab?
No, not jumping at Ali, but I mean, I thought this was really interesting from Löw, this front too, as well as this version of the back three we saw as well. But I just wonder, against, it works away from home against Holland, who are fairly open. I wonder, you play Gnabry and Sané up front against a team who sits, who brings numbers. I wonder how well that's going to work. Or rather, to make it work, you probably have to do all sorts of tweaks and whatnot. And you need to work on it, because, both these guys, we can talk about them coming inside and outside, but, how often do we see these situations where you're playing without a center forward? It puts a big onus on Leon Goretzka making those runs from midfield, to have the presence in the box. I don't know. I'm intrigued by it. I need to see more.
Meanwhile, from a Dutch point of view, you're 2-0 down, you get it back to 2-2, great. OK, we'll take the draw, but the fact that we've had this comeback, considering what's been going on in the past few years, you probably take it. And then, obviously, to concede that late winner, how much of a blow this is to the Dutch? Because we talked about them coming back, the Nations League, their performances there, and how they looked like they were turned a corner.
Well, it depends how you want to look at it,
Yeah.
for Ronald Koeman. If you look at the first half, you're going to ask questions as to the spacing in the midfield and how guys like Frankie de Jong, Wijnaldum, and De Roon were getting into areas in which they were opening all sorts of spaces and time for the Germans in transition. So there were multiple occasions where Kimmich was able to turn and run with the ball. And there was nobody near him and within 10 or 15 yards of him. That cannot happen. And so that structure in the midfield has to be better, certainly in the first half. Now, if I were Ronald Koeman, I would focus on what we did better in the second half. And clearly, they got closer to the Germans. They pushed their lines up and said, you know what? We're going to take the chance. We're going to take the opportunity to try to press them a little bit higher. We're going to put our lines up there. And once we get closer to people, then we're going to make it difficult for them and try to test them, see that they can play out. Well, they couldn't. And when they couldn't play out, it was sustained pressure by the Dutch. And eventually, you get yourself back into the game. As for the last goal, I'm going to give the credit to the Germans rather than take it away from the Dutch.
The Dutch are going to the Euros.
Yeah.
All right? I don't think that's even a debate, despite the fact they lose this game. But when it comes to just momentum and when it comes to the keyword, I suppose, confidence, does this play a factor? Or, as Ali says, can you focus on that second
No,
half?
you focus on the positives out of this. I think the Dutch responded. I mentioned the Nations League, and they regained confidence from that. This is a blow to the chin, yes, but I don't think it's one that is crippling to the Dutch, not given what we've seen from them over the last couple of years. Again, you get yourself back to 2-2, and they are pushing, looking for the third, and in some respects, if you're sitting in that dressing room, you're thinking we're a little bit unlucky not to go ahead 3-2. And then I'm with Ali here, that third German goal was just one of those things. You give them their credit, but you come away disappointed, but knowing that you played well, or as well as anybody can, against the Germans, certainly anybody in this group.
Much more reaction to what we saw today internationally over on Extra Time as we answer some of your questions. Some big ones coming in, like where does Shaka recommend going on his next holiday?
Oh, well, he would know.
What?
The problem when you're Argentina and you set the bar so high is when you go over, 12 years, 14 years without winning any sort of silverware, it stands out. This is their run in recent tournaments, and a lot of focus on Argentina after that horrible 3-1 defeat against Venezuela.
Yep.
Diego Maradona was asked whether or not he watched it. He said, I prefer to watch not to watch horror films, but I don't know how the inept bunch who are in charge of Argentina thought they were going to beat Venezuela. The current team don't deserve to wear the shirt. We'd give our lives to see the back of Argentina football president Claudio Tapia, who has no idea what he's doing. Ali, this of course is your first show since Venezuela's win against Argentina. I promise at some stage later down the line, for a short moment, you can gloat. But the big story is, of course, Argentina and what's happened. Why are they so bad?
Okay, so it doesn't happen overnight. It's not just one thing. It's a multitude of things that have gone wrong with Argentina. And then, to some degree, Diego Maradona addresses one of the issues now. Full disclosure, Diego Maradona has had issues with the federation, even when he was a player, even when they were winning things. And so the situation with Argentina, the federation is all over the place.
Right.
And there are many interests that pull in all sorts of different directions. But when it comes to the players on the field, there should be enough talent to go around for Argentina to be far better than what they've shown to be. But what we saw from them in the World Cup was so embarrassing in so many ways. The lack of organization, so the lack of discipline, the lack of structure, the lack of a coaching position that was actually respected and appreciated as the manager of the team. And then there is a dependency, a clear dependency on Lionel Messi. It's Lionel Messi and everybody else. Now, that reflects on Lionel Messi to some degree, but the fact is that whatever tournaments and results that we saw in that list just now, however far they got, was because they were hanging by a thread, and that single thread was Lionel Messi. There are guys that when they play with Argentina and next to Lionel Messi, they become half of the players that they are with their clubs. You cannot address that if you're a federation. You cannot address that if you're a manager, because you are selecting these players based on what you see with their clubs, and then they show with the national team, and they simply cannot hold the pressure. And the pressure is only going to get higher and tighter because clearly, it's not getting any better.
And how are Venezuela in this match, Ali?
Well, is this the part where I gloat? Is this
the part where me and Shaka go?
Is this the part where I gloat? Vamos, Venezuela! Not only did Venezuela beat Argentina, they dominated Argentina. And I don't think there was any picture that made it clear for what Venezuela and Argentina have become respectively than the second goal, where Venezuela, in years past, a decade ago, if they get a free kick outside the 18-yard box, they're going to slow it down. They're going to make sure that the big guys get up, and we're going to swing it in, see if we can sneak in a goal and maybe win the game that way. In this particular game, we actually are to the point now where we take quick free kicks.
Yes, plus the referee helped you, of course, for the penalty.
All right. Is that what you got out of this? We take quick free kicks because we feel comfortable enough, and that speaks to Venezuela, but it also speaks to Argentina. Comfortable enough that Venezuela can recognize that Argentina is vulnerable, that if you attack them, if you get after them, they are vulnerable, we can score goals. I don't know when this happened, but I love me some of this. Boom, Venezuela!
So we see how the